In 1930, an Inuit village stood burning, yet empty. The story begins on a frigid November night in 1930, when a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle trudged into the isolated Inuit village of Anjikuni. His dogs were weary, their breath clouding in the Arctic air, and he expected the familiar welcome of smoke, laughter, and the warmth of human company. Instead, he found silence. The village lay before him as if paused in time, cabins lit by firelight, meals waiting on tables, but no voices to greet him. LaBelle entered the first hut cautiously. A stew pot still simmered, faint wisps of steam curling upward. Bedding was laid out, garments neatly hung, rifles stacked against the wall. It looked as though the family had stepped outside only moments earlier. Yet the snow outside was undisturbed. No tracks leading away, no signs of struggle. Moving from house to house, LaBelle found the same scene repeated. Fires still burned, kettles hissed, food lay untouched. In one cabin, a half-mended net sprawled across the floor, needle and thread abandoned mid-stitch. In another, a child's toy rested beside a blanket, as if dropped in play. Everything spoke of life suddenly interrupted. The dogs outside howled uneasily, their hackles raised as if sensing what the human eye could not. LaBelle's unease deepened. He knew the Arctic's dangers: hunger, storms, sickness. But this was not death. It was absence. An entire village had been erased, leaving only its echo. Frightened, he reported what he found to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. His words carried weight. It was as though they had gone out into the snow and simply vanished. When Joe LaBelle's report reached the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, it stirred both urgency and disbelief. A vanished village. Fires left burning, food still on tables, no bodies, no tracks. The Arctic was cruel, but it did not erase people so cleanly. Still, the mounted police dispatched a team to investigate, their sleds cutting through snow that gleamed under the cold November moon. Upon arrival, they confirmed LaBelle's account. Every cabin stood intact, possessions neatly arranged, rifles stacked with care. Pots of stew hung over embers long gone cold, proof that the villagers had been alive only hours or days before. Yet the snowdrifts outside were untouched. No footprints led away from the settlement. Dogs tied to posts were found dead of starvation, their bones gnawed in desperation, grim evidence that their masters had not returned. The Mounties searched for graves, for signs of sickness or attack, but found none. No overturned furniture, no blood, no hurried packing. It was as if the inhabitants had risen in unison and walked into the night sky itself. They combed the shoreline of nearby Lake Anjikuni, expecting to find boats or tracks across the ice. Nothing. The water lay silent, sealed by winter. In one hut, they found something stranger still: rifles left behind, though in the Arctic, abandoning weapons was unthinkable. Survival depended on them. Why would hunters leave the tools of life? In another, a fur coat lay folded at the bedside, untouched despite the bitter cold. To the investigators, it was as if the people of Anjikuni had not planned to leave at all. The officers recorded their findings with care, though privately they admitted unease. Some muttered of spirits, others of a mass flight into the wilderness, but the facts remained fixed. Dozens of lives had simply evaporated, leaving their world intact. The snow told no story.
What are those strange lights?
We've never seen anything like this.
I am afraid.
News of Anjikuni's empty homes spread swiftly through the Northern Territories. For trappers, hunters, and the few scattered missionaries who knew the region, the story was unshakable. An entire village erased without a sound. With little evidence to explain the mystery, whispers rose to fill the silence. Some claimed the villagers had been taken by the land itself. Elders spoke of Torngaks, ancient spirits said to haunt the ice and punish those who trespassed in sacred places. A few suggested that the people of Anjikuni had angered the lake, and its frozen waters had swallowed them whole. Fishermen swore they saw strange lights dancing above the horizon on the night of the disappearance, brighter and faster than the northern lights, as though fire itself had fallen from the stars. The Mounties dismissed these tales as superstition. In their official reports, they hinted at the possibility of migration. Perhaps, they reasoned, the villagers had abandoned their homes to seek food or shelter elsewhere. Yet this explanation rang hollow. Why would they leave fires burning and food waiting? Why leave rifles, coats, and tools behind in the dead of winter? Rumors took on a life of their own. Traders on frozen rivers whispered that the Inuit had been taken up, their souls lifted into the northern sky. Others compared the mystery to ghost ship tales. Villages, like vessels, abandoned mid-motion, their inhabitants vanished into the unknown. Meanwhile, those who had walked through the village could not forget what they had seen. The silence, the uneaten meals, the sense that life had been interrupted, not abandoned. To them, superstition or not, the Arctic had claimed the villagers in a way no human explanation could reach. When the mounted police returned south with their notes, the mystery of Anjikuni spread beyond the tundra. In December of 1930, Canadian newspapers carried the tale. An Inuit settlement discovered still warm with life, yet empty of people. The headlines called it a phantom village. Readers shivered at the idea of fires burning in deserted homes, of sled dogs left to starve, of a logbook of life interrupted. Yet even as the story captured imaginations, contradictions emerged. Some reports claimed hundreds had vanished, others only a few dozen. Certain papers described strange blue lights over the lake, while official files from the RCMP mentioned nothing of the sort. In some versions, graves had been found mysteriously opened, as if the dead themselves had been taken. In others, this detail was dismissed as rumor. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police grew uneasy. Their records confirmed that a village had been investigated, but their final statements downplayed the strangeness. They insisted the inhabitants may have migrated to another camp, leaving possessions behind in haste. But those who had seen the village with their own eyes doubted such a simple answer. They had walked into homes where meals were waiting, where fires had only just begun to die, where rifles leaned ready by the door. Such scenes did not speak of planned departure. Meanwhile, the press only deepened the enigma. Journalists eager for sensation painted Anjikuni as a place haunted by northern spirits, where people had been swallowed by the wilderness. The mixture of fact and fiction turned the mystery into legend. And so, while the police sought to close their files, the public imagination refused. The vanished village became a tale repeated in taverns, in camps, in the drifting glow of lanterns across frozen rivers. Something had happened in Anjikuni. But whether it was natural, human, or supernatural, no one could agree.
The old ones warned us of the shadows that dance between the trees, especially when the lights call to them.
As months passed, the mystery of Anjikuni slipped from official reports and settled into the realm of folklore. In the frozen expanse of northern Canada, where long nights breed long stories, the tale grew with every telling. Around campfires, hunters and trappers leaned close, their faces flickering in the firelight, repeating what they had heard, an entire village gone, leaving only warmth and silence behind. Some spoke of blue lights above Lake Anjikuni, darting faster than the northern aurora. They claimed the villagers had followed those lights into the sky, drawn upward like moths into flame. Others told of dark shapes moving in the forest, shadows that lingered just beyond the fire's reach, waiting for the living to wander too far from safety. Children shivered as elders warned them never to stray near the lake after dusk, lest they too vanish. In these retellings, fact and myth fused. The starving sled dogs became guardians abandoned by their masters, howling for souls lost to the night. The uneaten meals became offerings to unseen spirits, left unfinished as their owners were carried away. And the rifles, those crucial tools of survival, became the strangest omen of all, symbols of a people who no longer needed weapons against the wilderness. For the Inuit themselves, the story was a heavier burden. It was not told as entertainment, but as a warning. Their traditions held that the land was alive, that spirits dwelled in the ice and sky. To them, Anjikuni's silence was proof that some boundaries must not be crossed. Outsiders could dismiss it as a tale, but to those who lived on the edge of survival, the memory was a wound. Thus, the vanished village became both legend and lesson. It was retold not in newspapers, but in whispers that traveled with the wind, carried by those who had seen the empty fires with their own eyes. In the north, it became more than a story. It became a shadow. By the mid-20th century, Anjikuni was no longer just a northern whisper. It had become a subject for researchers, folklorists, and skeptics alike. Each retelling added new details, and each investigator tried to strip them away. Was this truly a vanished community, or only a story inflated by cold nights and eager journalists? Some skeptics argued that Joe LaBelle's account had been exaggerated, or perhaps even invented. They noted that official RCMP files from the 1930s were frustratingly vague, offering little more than passing references. To them, Anjikuni was less a mystery and more a ghost story born of isolation. Yet folklorists saw something different. They pointed out how the tale mirrored patterns in Inuit oral tradition, warnings of spirits that punished disrespect, and stories of entire camps swallowed by forces unseen. In this sense, the vanished village was not an anomaly, but part of a deeper, older rhythm in northern storytelling. Journalists continued to keep the tale alive. In magazines and pulp collections, Anjikuni was placed alongside ghost ships and lost colonies, an Arctic cousin to Roanoke or the Mary Celeste. Illustrations showed cabins glowing under auroras, shadowed figures vanishing into the snow. Even as facts blurred, fascination grew. And for every skeptic, there were still those who had walked through the empty settlement. Trappers and hunters remembered the fires, the half-stitched nets, the untouched food. They remembered the silence that clung like a weight. Their memories refused to shrink into folklore. To them, Anjikuni had been real, and it had been emptied. Thus, the story endured in two worlds at once, as a legend studied by scholars, and as a lived terror carried by those who claimed to have seen it. Between these versions lay a void, one that no document, no interview, no investigation could fully close. Today, the mystery of Anjikuni drifts between history and legend, never fully belonging to either. For some, it is dismissed as exaggeration, an embellished tale of migration or miscommunication, stretched into myth by time and distance. For others, it remains one of the Arctic's darkest enigmas. A village alive one moment, gone the next, leaving behind only fires, food, and silence. Travelers still pass near Lake Anjikuni, their eyes lingering on the frozen shoreline. Few dare to camp there. Guides tell newcomers the story in hushed voices, pointing toward the snow and the dark water beyond. That's where they vanished, they whisper, as if naming the place too loudly might awaken it again. In books and radio broadcasts, the tale has endured. It has been retold as a ghost story, a UFO abduction, even as evidence of supernatural forces that roam the north. Each generation reshapes it, layering fear and wonder onto the same foundation. An emptiness no one could explain. Yet what makes Anjikuni so haunting is not what was found, but what was not. No bodies, no footprints, no signs of departure. Just the heavy stillness of a community interrupted mid-breath. That absence lingers more sharply than any clue. It is the silence that unsettles, more than any speculation of spirits or stars. And so the vanished village lives on, not in official records, but in memory, in story, in warning. It reminds those who hear it that even in the modern age, the earth can still hold secrets, vast and impenetrable. It whispers that the wilderness is not empty, but watchful. Perhaps the people of Anjikuni were taken by hunger, by storm, by migration. Or perhaps they were taken by something far older, something the tundra has always known. Whatever the truth, their absence remains. A wound carved into the snow, a reminder that some mysteries are meant never to be solved.